Good morning, YouTube. Matthew back here with you today. In this video, we're going to be discussing graded card companies, slabs, and we're going to be discussing a lot of slabs and a lot more slabs. But I've got a lot laid out here that I'm going to give you examples of what's been going on recently in the grading uh, sports card world. I mentioned this in some recent videos, so I'm going to reference these guys one more time. I'm subscribed to both of these guys on YouTube, and one of them is Chris Stoll, I think is how he pronounces his name. He goes by, his handle on YouTube is Baseball Collector, Investor, Dealer, in that order is how he'll say it in his videos. But I believe his name that you would look him up is Collector, Investor, Dealer. And recently, in the last month, he has put out a couple of videos where he discusses a lot about what's going on with PSA, SGC, as well as he mentions a little bit about Beckett. Also, there's another guy that is now Chris is he has been a long time YouTuber. I've been subscribed to him probably like 5 years. He has got probably thousands of videos. So he's been on YouTube a long time. He's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. This other guy is called Billy Ballgame. Is what you can search to find his channel. Now, Billy Ballgame is more like me. He's not got nowhere near the subscribers. He's not been doing videos as long on YouTube as Chris. But Billy did some videos recently. Billy, like me, prefers, as far as the looks of the slab and overall feel of the slab, Billy likes SGC slabs. And he is a vintage collector, and that is something that I ended up watching. I ended up, subscribing to his channel because I like vintage cards. And so anyway, both of these guys have done videos recently, and it's caused me to decide that I wanted to do a video. I'm going to put down at the bottom of this video, and I'm going to pin it to the top of the comments, this question: what are your thoughts on your preferences as far as the grading card world at this point? But anyway, before I go any more into that, let me just tell you there's been big changes with PSA. Now, everyone knows PSA is the leading card grading company out there and has been. There was a time when this company, Beckett, was number one in the grading card industry. Beckett, as you all know, or if you don't know, if you're somebody that's newer to collecting, or you just never got into grading, or you really never kept up with what was going on in the sports card world news, Beckett owner got caught up in a scandal. Beckett basically went broke, bankrupt. And this is a company. Here's another example of a Beckett. Now these are authenticated autographs, but I'm an autograph collector, so I got way more of that than I have just graded to use as examples. But was a Beckett case, At any rate, at this point, it's my understanding that Beckett still grades sports cards if somebody wants to send to them. But this scandal has pretty much ended Beckett, and it's sad. Beckett as a company, now it's not been owned by the same people all this time. But when I was a kid, Beckett put out the first price guides back in the I think early '80s. Beckett was around my entire childhood. From the time I started collecting, Beckett price guides were around, and it's really sad. But they went from the number one grading company in the world at one point, or in the hobby, to they pretty much don't even exist now. I know that they still, from what I'm being told, are trying to survive off of grading gaming cards such as Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and that they still will grade sports cards, but basically they're losing out. Now, there is another new company, and over the years, ever since grading became a thing back in the late 90s, there has been many a company that came and went and vanished and disappeared. And there is one right now that I see a lot of. I'm seeing more and more cards on a regular basis. So I'm assuming that it must be cheaper to grade with them. I don't know. I've never really looked them up. But CGC, I think, is what they're called. And it's confusing because recently I've came across people that are pushing cards that are graded in slabs that say CGS. From what I've found out, CGS is the same company as CGC. They just changed the name of their company and changed their slabs and changed their labels. And then there is some older slabs that are out there that are not as plentiful. You know, you don't see them as often, but there's some other group of letters in a different looking slab, and apparently that was CGS before it became CGS and then became CGC, which is all kind of confusing. And for to be honest with you, in my opinion, if you're a newer company and you're trying to establish a footing in the sports card, market with collectors, you need to come up with a name for your company and stick with it, because the more you change things, the more you appear to be illegitimate. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't. For one thing, I'll give you an example. If I had sent, it would be like this. If I had spent several $100s sending, or if I'd have spent $1,000 sending 100 cards, or to PSA a few years back when their fees were much cheaper, but let's say I did that, and let's say that I'd spent $1,000 to $2,000 to send 100 cards to be graded by PSA, and I get the slabs back, and I'm all happy, and I got my new slabs, and then all of a sudden, about a month later, I get online, and boom, PSA changed their name to SAB, and they changed the look of their slabs and their labels, and all of a sudden, my PSA slabs would be outdated and whatever, and people would look at them kind of funny at that point, because everybody say, "Oh, we're going to this company now. They're the leading company. You got the old, you got old slabs, old this, old that, and the value of them would drop through the, bottom out." Well, what PSA has done some things that, like Crystal has been talking about, Billy Bogey has been talking about, really is hurting the value of sports cards, that are graded sports cards, and even authenticated autographs. And I'll tell you that as an autograph collector, and I'm going to explain to you in this video why. Okay, the first thing I will tell you is this. Now, my favorite company as far as the look of the slabs is SGC. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about their older slabs from like the early 2000s or whatever, or even a decade ago. I'm talking about these black border slabs. I really love them. I love the size. I love the feel. I love the way that they just look. And I've got these cards that I'm going to show you are all autographed examples. Like I said, I'm an autograph collector, so I have by far more authenticated autographs and slabs than I do graded slabs, because I'm just not that big of a collector on graded stuff as much as I am autographs. So, and I mean, that's me, but anyway, the slabs, you still get the general idea, because if it was a graded card, just a graded card, no autograph, the slab is going to look the same. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, SGC was always, because I liked the look of the slab, and because they were so much cheaper, and they also were legitimate. They had a legitimate in the sports card collecting world. They were one of three companies with PSA and Beckett at one time that were accepted as legitimate grading sources, and their cards held value. with collectors because they were considered legitimate. Now, SGC for a long time was always known as the best company to go to with vintage cards, that they did a better job of grading vintage cards, especially pre-war cards going on back into the late 1800s and crap like that. Anything that was considered that old, SGC was the company that you should go with because it was said they did a much better job than PSA. There was also stories that I read years ago, and I'm talking back in like the early 2000s, where PSA had refused to grade cards, some pre-war cards in those days. That ended up SGC had no problem grading, and you know that was just. But and the biggest reason was PSA was too worried about people sending in fakes, reproductions, and they just did not have the expertise to be able to tell on the pre-war cards. Whereas apparently at that time, whereas SGC, they had some card graders who have been around longer and excelled in that area. So, excuse me. Anyway, it's early morning. I still got to have a little bit of coffee in me. But anyway, SGC was my go-to, and SGC, you know, I just, like I said, I love the slabs. Well, when it come to authenticated cards, though, like autographs, like especially when I started this 88 Tops project, I wasn't worried about getting, like, some people that collect, they got to have anything in the slab. They don't want nothing but, be it PSA, SGC, Beckett, whatever. They collect what they prefer, and they don't want any cards that are not slabbed by that company if they're going to collect anything slabbed. Well, I'm not like that. So when I started doing this 88 Tops project I was working on, I got some SGC, I got some PSA, and I got some Beckett, and that's what I did. I just opened up a box, pulled out a bunch of graded slabs or authenticated autographs that I have for the 88 Tops project to use in this video. But anyway, the problem that I ran into this past year was SGC announced that they were no longer going to authenticate autographs. Well, that wasn't really the problem, because at the time that they announced this, you still had Beckett at that time. And of course, you had PSA. And on a lesser level, if you're in the autograph collector realm, JSA is legit as it gets. And if you've never, you may have seen them, they put these little, the thing is about JSO, they put little stickers on the back of your card. They put little stickers on autograph photos and stuff. And a lot of people don't like that because it takes away, you got a card. Do you really want somebody to put a sticker, a permanent sticker on the back of your card, even though it's got an authentication number that verifies that they've looked at it, authenticated the autograph? Does that help or hurt the value of a card, especially if it's a card that's in great shape, that maybe somebody, and I'll give you an example, that maybe somebody wanted to send in to a PSA or something possibly and get graded? Now, you notice right here, this is not the card graded, though. This is just the autograph. Now, PSA, that is one of the things that PSA has started doing. This Nolan Ryan here is just the autograph grade. They gave it a 10. But the problem that PSA has, it's not a problem to me, but it's becoming a problem to me and people like me because of what dealers are doing. And that's how it's going to affect, it's affecting me. It's affecting other YouTubers out there that, YouTube creators out there that are talking about it. And it's going to affect you if you're in a sports card market. And I'm going to, just give you a heads up, give you some warning about this. It's actually causing me to think about, not that I'm ever going to quit collecting 100%, but it's causing me to think about just getting out of the game. It makes me feel like that I did back in the mid 90s. I went from being such a big sports fan and baseball. I loved baseball. I loved baseball cards. And the player strike of 94 pissed me off so bad at the game that I was like, I quit collecting. And it was right at the height of all that 90s junk that they were mass producing. Yeah, they mass produced cards in the late 80s big time. Big time. But nothing, the 90s was insane how much junk. And by what I mean by junk, by the mid 90s, there was 50 million companies producing card sets. You went from, I grew, when I started collecting, there was Topps, there was Fleer, and there were Donruss. By the mid 90s, there was Pacific, Pinnacle. I mean, there was just so many, it just so many. And then, but the sport itself, the players, caused me to turn my back on the sport. And then right after that, they come back from the strike. There's this massive home run race between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in 1996. Everybody's talking about it. That is saving the game. And then the steroid scandal broke. You know, there was also, I'll be honest with you, there was a lot of people there was proof that Sosa used cork bats as well. But anyway, it ruined the hobby. The baseball card market crashed, and I lived through that. And cards that were worth big money went to being worth nothing. This is before the graded card world, but I've seen things happen that led to the great card crash. And what am I seeing today? Today I'm seeing by company, even though Topps. Now, yes, there is other companies like Panini, Donruss. They make sports card sets, and yes, they are not officially licensed with Major League Baseball. It is a big reason why, like, you'll get a pack of like Donruss or whatever, and their hats don't have the team logos on them. It's because they're not licensed with Major League Baseball. They do have a license with the Players Union. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to show the players' images on the cards, but they don't have Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball only give a license to Topps. Now, Topps, if you say, well, there's Bowman out there, Topps owns Bowman. Okay. They've owned them for years. Now, back in the 50s, there was Bowman and there was Topps, in the early 50s, but Topps owns Bowman. So when you see a baseball card that says Bowman, Chrome, or whatever, that's actually made by Topps company, same company. But anyway, what is really, to me, destroying the hobby with PSA? PSA bought SGC. When PSA bought SGC, you had SGC announced they're no longer going to authenticate autographs. Okay? Now, PSA claims that SGC, while they own SGC now, and SGC employees are now PSA employees, they claim that SGC operates 100% independently from PSA. Really. Never in my life, and I'm 50 years old almost, never in my life have I seen a company buy out another company and then say, but that company, even though we own them, they operate completely independently from our corporation. They are not a part of us. We just own them. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay. And the first step that proved to me that it wasn't going to work that way was when SGC said, you know what, we're not authenticating autographs anymore. Because what that did, that fixed it to where unless you wanted to go to this newer company, CGS, CGC, whatever they want to call themselves, they change their name every month. But unless you wanted to go to them, it gave you two options. You could go to PSA or you could go to Beckett. And what was, well, you want to say, well, you still had two options. Not really. Because at the time that SGC said, we're going to stop authenticating autographs, the Beckett scandal was underway. Okay. Beckett was on the downfall. Beckett was going slowly Beckett was competing with PSA, and Beckett is up here at one time, and Beckett is going back down here, and PSA is quickly going back up. So, as a collector, if I was going to authenticate something, also Beckett was not as cheap as SGC, neither was PSA. So if I'm going to authenticate, and especially one thing that made me sad was, like I said, I like this slab. Look at that black border, that black background on a Cal Ripken Sr. autograph. Now, I love that. Look at this. This looks like cheap China-made plastic. Nothing special, nothing fancy, nothing looks that good. Just cheap, clear, China-made plastic. Look like it come from China yesterday. But that's PSA. It's small, it's tiny, it's narrow. I just don't like it as good. At the same time, look at Beckett. To me, Beckett was just a thicker, heavier PSA, but just as ugly. I'm sorry, I'm biased. I just loved SGC's black border slabs. But at any rate, if I had my pick after that, I would go with PSA. Now, there's a lot of people that say, oh, well, I loved Beckett slabs. I loved them. They were higher quality. Yeah, they're higher quality. The thing weighs 5 pounds. You know, it's heavy as a rock, you know. But, you know, they're right now, I would not send anything to Beckett because if you send a card to get authenticated to Beckett, you know what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's happening right now. Thanks to the Beckett scandal, people that have spent thousands of dollars grading cards through Beckett over the years, people that have authenticated cards through Beckett autograph over the years. Now, I don't have a problem with these Beckett slabs in my autograph collection or in my 88 Topps project set. But you know what dealers are doing now? And it happened recently at the last National. It's been happening at card shows all over America. And Crystal and different, like I said, different people talking about this. You'll have somebody like me that'll decide, you know what, I need to sell some of my collection. And they'll go to somewhere like the National, or they'll go to another card show somewhere, and they'll take a bunch of cards like this, and they'll go in, and the dealers, these bigger, power selling dealers on eBay type, the Probstes, the cards, all that. The guys that go around hunting collections to be able to, there's guys on YouTube that do videos, they hunt collections to buy, and then they don't want the whole collection. The rest of it, they just soon throw it in a dumpster. They want the high-end stuff to be able to put on eBay and sell because they only sell on eBay. They're power sellers. They don't want junk. Like they wouldn't even want this Hall of Fame autograph of Burt Blyleven because they'd say, well, that's not worth enough. They're looking for cards that are like 1-of-1s, 1-of-5s, stuff that they can sell for $1,000. They don't want something like I collect. They would look at my entire collection and they would say, even though it's got autographs authenticated of Hall of Famers, they would say it's not worth anything. They wouldn't want the an autograph Nolan Ryan or autograph Mike Schmidt, not unless it said it was a 1-of-1 or a 1-of-5 or a 1-of-10, something like that. Very low, as if that makes the autograph harder to get or something. No, it makes that particular card harder to get. Does not make the autograph. That's something that I try to tell people. I've been saying it ever since they started the serial numbered card thing. And when it comes to autographs, if you're wanting an autograph of a player that you grew up loving or that you love, whatever that's playing today, you can get their autograph. Just because there's an example out there that's, oh well, that one cost there somebody's asking $12,000 for it on eBay because it's a 1-of-5. They only made 5 of them. And I can't afford that, so how am I going to get the guy's autograph? Well, if it's your favorite player, there's going to be examples of their autograph out there that are not serial numbered that you could probably pick up a lot of times for $20. So don't worry if you're an autograph collector, you don't need serial numbered. Serial numbered cards are for the people that want the very low pop crap. And I'm going to be honest with you, when the higher end you get, as they call it like that, you get into a situation where when you want to sell something, you have a very low amount of people that you're going to be able to sell it to. And example of that is let's say this card was right now, like I had it on eBay. Let's say this was a serial numbered 1-out-of-5, and I had $5,000 on it because he's a Hall of Famer, whatever. All right. How many people do you think that get on eBay and shop on eBay are going to be in the market for a $5,000 card? Seriously. Now, yeah, if it was a Mickey Mantle, maybe more so. If it was a Hank Aaron, maybe more so. But a Burt Blyleven, a more modern player and Hall of Famer, do you think there's going to be that many people willing to pay $5,000 for a 1 of 5, whatever, blah, 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 blah? No. You're going to see it sit there and sit there and sit there, and you're going to have people that are interested, low value, low value, low value. And that's the way, that's why I'm like the thing about the high end, yeah, it's nice. If you pull a 101, if you open up a pack, blah, blah, blah. But I don't bust packs, really. There's no, I would if I got something cheap enough deal at it, like, like an old box of, cards from back in the day. But breaking packs is not where the value is. You go in the hole. You go, especially with modern crap, you go in the hole. But let's say you buy a pack and you bust it and you get a 101 of somebody like a Freddie Freeman 101, blah, 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 blah. And it's the holy grail of Freddie Freeman cards. Well, you know what? Good for you. My advice to you is sell it while he's hot because, like at a point when he's at his highest, because there's no guarantee, that it's going to hold value. There's no guarantee in this hobby. And Beckett is gone. PSA has no competitors anymore. And dealers are saying, guess what? All these autographs that you got from Beckett, they're worthless now. That's what they're saying. They're saying they're worthless. I'm sorry, I got off subject because this topic really upsets me. But Beckett, you got dealers at the nationals and stuff now saying, oh, they'll buy it because they'll say, yeah, well, yeah, it's authentic, but you got to realize it's in a Beckett slab, so you can't sell it now. They'll say, so what they're trying to do, like this right here, Tom Glavine's autograph in this condition, it's not graded, it's nothing, it's just an authenticated autograph, and to boot, it's in a dark navy blue, so it's not a bright light blue Sharpie autograph. So you're looking at a card because it's so easy to find his autographs out there because he signs so much or has signed so much. You're looking at a $50 card, even though he's a Hall of Famer, and that slab. That's around about what the going rate is. Whether it's now, people on eBay, you can't go by what they list. Something 13. I don't forgot. There's a website out there, something 13. I don't forgot, but you can look it up and find what the something point 13. But you can find out what things really sell for recently, so you can get a better idea of what the value is of something. Don't just assume because some idiot gets on eBay and says, "Oh, I got a Tom Glavine authenticated by Beckett autograph. I want $500 for it." Blah blah blah. And don't look at that and say, "Oh, well, I got a Tom Glavine autograph at home too, and it's not authenticated, but because that guy's got asking $500 for it, my Tom Glavine must be worth at least $500." No, no, it's not. First, it would have to be graded because honestly, I mean authenticated because honestly, even if I, as an autograph collector, look at the autograph and I'm 100% positive it's a legit autograph, if it's not authenticated already, I've got to authenticate it. I've got to pay the money to authenticate it. And that means that unauthenticated raw autographs are not worth what a graded autograph is. But at the same time, that would not be worth a $500 price that some idiot on eBay is asking and just dreaming that some fool will pay that much for it. What that means is you look it up. This card right here routinely sells between $50 to $75 autographed. That's his rookie card. But, I don't care if it's authenticated by Beckett, PSA, SGC. I don't care who authenticated it. This ranges between 75 and $50 usually. Okay. Dan Quisenberry. Now this guy's very tough to find. This is a great reliever, but this is in a Beckett slab. So you go to a card show nowadays, and you know what? These big dealers will say, "Well, you know what? Yeah, it's a rare autograph. Guy's been dead since the guy's been passed away over 20 years." His autograph's tough to get, and it's authenticated. That's nice. The problem is it's in a Beckett slab. Beckett had that scandal. Ooh, So how about $10? How about no thanks? But that's what's happening. And then even with PSA, it's not just that. Now see that they're also doing it with these SGC slabs that I love. Like there's that Mark Grace. You go to a national or something, a dealer will be like, well, I'll give you $5 for it because, it's in an SGC slab. SGC no longer authenticates autographs. And you know what, sadly, PSA did when they bought SGC? They when SGC authenticated this card, well, actually, this one, yeah, it's got authentic and it's got the number right there. Even this older Cal Ripken Sr., it's authenticated and it's got the number across there. You got to try to look. Here's an Alan Trammell certification number right there on the label. You got to try to look these up on the SGC website now. They're not going to show up in the database. PSA had them remove all the authenticated autographs out of the system because they were no longer going to authenticate autographs. The funny thing is, it makes me so mad because SGC never authenticated anything. SGC paid JSA to authenticate the autograph, and then SGC put it in a holder as authentic. That's what they did. And on their oldest slabs, I've got some up here in my Indians PC, that even says that JSA authenticated right on the label of SGC slabs. And then to top it off, now PSA has started making their little changes in the system to where they're going to change their grading standards, and they're going to change, their grading scale. They're going to be stricter on centering. They're going to make it harder than it. People used to say that liked Beckett and defended Beckett. They used to say Beckett was the best grading company. They would say, well, Beckett was stricter at grading. It was harder to get a 10. Therefore, they said you knew what your actual grade of your card really was if you went with Beckett instead of PSA. Well, now, suddenly PSA, they're going to do that. You know why? Because they're wanting to pull the last little bit of life of customers that Beckett has left away from Beckett. Finish them off because they own SGC now, who is their next leading competitor. And so PSA gets stricter on grading. So what's happening now is you take cards, you got a PSA 10, you got a PSA 10 King Griffey Jr. Upper Deck rookie, and you take it to the National, and they look at you, those dealers look at you now, and they say, oh, well, that's nice, and I'd be interested in buying this card. But the problem is, look at the serial number. This card was graded 5 years ago. PSA's changed their standards now on their grading, so this card might not get a 10 if I send it back in today to be reslabbed with a newer label. So I can't give you but about a fourth of what it's worth. Yeah, that's what's going on right now, thanks to PSA. Okay, and in the what's that doing for somebody like me that collects autographs? Well, you have dealers at card shows now, these big mega dealers that want to say, well, this Nolan Ryan autograph, that's nice, but that you can tell by the label and the number on the label that was, it wasn't like that was, graded recently. Well, first off, it's a graded autograph. It's not a graded card. But they would say, what's big nowadays is you can send that into PSA and they'll put it in a modern slab with a modern label, and they'll grade. You can pay a little extra and they'll grade not only the autograph but the card, and then you can possibly have a 10-10 PSA. I got a Jose Ramirez autograph in a video. It's shared in a video. It was SGC, but it was like a 10-10 that I shared like a while back. But that right there is so, it makes me so mad. Because now I realize you can say, well, that's not PSA. That is the dealers at the card shows. But they're trying to screw and lowball everybody. It's just like this right here. This is a Cal Ripken Eddie Murray dual authenticated autograph. You do know that when you have a dual autograph card and you send it in to be authenticated, it costs more than just a single player authentication because there's more than one autograph to be authenticated. At any rate, they would, a dealer would look at this and they would say, yeah, well, you know what? That's nice. And even though Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken Jr., the dealer might say, yeah, their autographs normally sell in this range, especially for this, set. Basically, on average, they could look at that. They would look it up at point 30. They would be like, yeah, it usually sells for blah blah blah. But then they would hit you with because you didn't get the autographs graded, and it's just authentic. It's not autograph grade 10 or autographs grade 10, and you didn't get the card itself graded too, then I can't give you but maybe a fifth of what it's been selling for, because it'll be hard to sell because it's in an old slab and you didn't grade the auto. Same thing with this Mike Schmidt. Not good enough that it's authenticated now. These sellers out there, these dealers out there now want to say, well, yeah, it's an authentic autograph, but you didn't get it graded. So what you need to do, also, they'd say, that's an old label, that's an old slab. You need to see that's still the red label. Oh, you need to send it. Do you not realize that PSA changed back to authenticated autographs now have the blue label like this? That you should send it back in. Oh, but guess what? You should send this one back in too, because even though that's got the blue label, that's the old blue label from the early 2000s, and that's outdated. So what they're wanting you to do now, bottom line, PSA wants you to, or these dealers are trying to tell the collector, you need to take all your authenticated autographs and all your graded cards that you had graded 5, 10 years ago, and you need to send them back into PSA, and you need to pay double what you paid 5, 10 years ago to re-authenticate, to regrade, to reslab into modern holders with modern labels. Oh, and by the way, while you're doing it, make sure you pay the extra to get the autograph graded, or else it's not really worth anything. That's what these dealers at these shows are trying to tell you. They're trying to tell you, hey, that's a nice Nolan Ron autograph, and you did get it graded a 10. You did get the autograph graded, but you didn't get the card graded. So instead of that being, like they'll look at you and they'll be like, so I wouldn't want to, they'll be like, I wouldn't feel comfortable paying more than maybe, $60 for it. And Nolan Ron charges more than that just to autograph a card. No, thank you. And that's what's wrong with the hobby today. That's what's wrong with the graded card sports market. Now, as far as companies go, that new one, SGC, not SGC, CGS or whatever they call themselves, CGC. I don't know. Maybe they'll, as Billy Ballgame said, who knows? Maybe in a few years they will, really catch on and they'll become the next powerhouse that comes up to challenge, PSA or whatever. But right now, I'm a collector that's sitting here with all these slabbed autographs from 3 different companies, a large part of which is PSA, Hall of Famers, authenticated autographs. And there's power dealers out there that sell on eBay, that sell at all these, the biggest card shows that'll be at the National. And they want to look at me and they want to tell me they're interested in buying these from me, but they can only give me about a fifth to a fourth of what they're worth or what they've been selling for recently, because of the fact that they're in either Beckett slabs, which nobody wants Beckett no more, or because they're in SGC slabs, and SGC no longer authenticates anything. And since PSA forced SGC to remove all their authentication numbers from the system, there's no way that these sellers, there's no way you can verify that. There's no way to verify it because the authentication number is not in the system now. PSA had them remove them. So since you can't verify that this was authenticated by SGC, then it's not worth anything, they'll tell you. It's just like a raw graded autograph, a raw ungraded or unauthenticated autograph. Actually, it's not. This is authenticated. This is legit. This is a legit SGC slab. But a dealer at a show will tell you, you need to send this into PSA and let them remove it from this case and put it in a PSA slab and blah, blah, blah. And then bring it back to them and instead of offering you $10, they'll offer you 20. Okay? That's what they're, and it's just bull. It's just bull. And I'm just, yeah. I'm still an autograph collector. I'm still a sports card collector. I do realize that when you resell stuff you're going, trust me, I know I've sold. You have to have room. When I, as a guy that sold for a long time on eBay and stuff, and I still sell at times now in groups, you're looking for something you can buy that you've got some room to take out, take into consideration fees, losses, of stuff that don't sell, and profit margin room. But you still, honest, resellers and whatnot like that, they're going to give you a decent offer if they're wanting to buy your collection. They're not going to lowball you. And nowadays, these people, these bigger power, sellers, and it's affecting the hobby because what's happening is you have people go to somewhere like the National and they see these big time, dealers saying, you know what, we'll buy your Beckett slabs, but we're only going to give you, they don't care if it's an authenticated autograph and they know it's real. They're going to be like, oh, I can't give you more than like maybe $10 for that. And if you sell it to them, you think they're going to get it? They may, depending on the player, but more than likely, they're just going to turn around and sell it as is, and they're going to slap, a much higher price on it because they don't have to wait for the turnaround PSA time. But like even this is one of the more expensive, high-end autos that I have for the 88 top set. Right there, Barry Bonds, because you don't sign nothing no more. Hasn't for years. And that's in a Beckett slab though. So they would be like, ooh, it's Beckett. Give you $20 for it because it's a Beckett slab. No, no, thank you. No. But anyway, you get my point. All of this is ruining the hobby. And but what it's really making me realize is this. While I love these slabs, I'm thinking now there's a good possibility coming soon, just like the car crash in the 80s. From the 80s, I grew up in the boom of the 80s. The car crash in the 90s, and I'm sorry, that's when it was. The 90s was the big drop boom. But the late 80s was when they really started to make, millions and millions and millions of examples of every single baseball card over production. Well, what do you have now in today's world? Tops making way, way, way more product today than there are people buying it out there. That's why you get on eBay and you see unopened boxes and unopened cases and unopened whatever. And you go into card shops and you see boxes from 3 years ago of high-end stuff just sitting there, still unopened, still nothing, because they're making more than they are people to buy it. That's what's happening. And yet, that in other words, overpopulation in the hobby, overproduction in the hobby makes the value start to come down. People are already complaining about, oh, well, you can tell by comps on eBay that prices have come down since the 2020 COVID outbreak. Blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? A lot of it has to do with mass overproduction of card sets that people are not collecting and not buying today. That hurts the value of cards. You got collectors out there, they're not collectors. They'll buy a box of cards. They open up this. They're looking for the hit. They go straight to the hit. And if the hit isn't something they want, then they just sling the whole stack of cards across the room for all they care, and the trash for all they care. Because they're looking for that 101, that 1 of 10, that 1 of 20. And if they got to waste $1,000 to try to find something even worth $100, they're doing it, And that's just not me. And if now with I had become a big time autograph collector, and now with the way that people are trying to now say, oh well, even if your PSA doesn't matter, if your PSA slab, the serial number on that slab, if it's too old, because well, now they're up in the, if you get something graded now or authenticated now, the numbers are in the this, in the nines, in the blah blah blah. So if yours is in the blah blah blah, that's old. You need a new slab. You need a new this. No, if I take care of every one of these are in graded card bags, and the PSA ones I put in PSA, the more newer PSA bags. All right, I take care of my slabs. I take care of my collection. I'm not going to take every 3 or 4 years when PSA wants to change a little this and a little that and pay jacked up prices because PSA is higher now, and then wait 8 months, send off all my cards, and wait 6 months to a year to get my collection back in pristine new slabs with new labels and a modern number, and maybe get my autographs all graded, just so I can turn around again in 3 or 4 years and have some dealer tell me, you know what you need to do? You need to send them all back in yet again to get a modern label and a modern slab. No, thank you. These will sit in my collection till I'm dead and gone. And my niece and nephew or whoever gets them, they'll be able to sell them for whatever they can get for them. Or they can keep them if they want. Till they're dead and gone and give them to their kids. It doesn't matter to me. But I will not play the PSA game anymore. I will not play this game with the dealers out there that's trying to, I've been around long enough. I already lived through the card crash of the 90s, and that's what I see getting ready to happen with modern stuff out there. There's so much junk, and it's not just me. If you watch a lot of YouTube videos, there is a ton of channels out there with guys with way, way, way more in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers, even millions of subscribers, that are saying the same thing, that these companies today are making too much junk, and there's way too much of it out there. There's a Family Dollar less than a mile from my house, and you can walk in right now, and they have got boxes in a corner. They have got boxes of Donruss products, from Donruss basketball products, football products, Donruss, whatever, optic, whatever they call it. I don't know. I don't collect that shit. But Donruss, whatever, modern crap. I don't collect all that, but basketball, football, baseball, and they got all that crap over in the corner, and they've got packs sitting there unopened, boxfuls of them, going back the last 3 or 4 years. What does that tell you? That tells you that these companies are making more product than there are people buying. There's $1 a pack. You can't even sell it and get rid of it at a dollar store for $1 a pack. And that tells you two things. Actually, it tells you, one, it's a shitty product that nobody wants, and two, it tells you there's nobody collecting today. Okay? And most of the people that are collecting today that are really true collectors, they're collectors like me, who grew up collecting in the 80s and went back, found their hobby again years later. That's the truth. But anyway, I'm not saying there's not some young collectors out there, but most of the younger collectors are fewer and farther between. It ain't like when I was a kid. When I was 10 years old, almost every single boy at school that I went to school with, plus half the girls, had baseball cards. But anyway, I know this was like a rumbling rant video. I know I was all over the place about this hobby, but it's got me sad. About this topic with the grading card companies and authentication card companies. It's got me really sad. I know I said this earlier in the video. If you've watched to this point, seriously, I'm going to put a question at the top of the comments and put it there. And if you would take a moment to tell me what is your thoughts on the companies that are out there, let me know what you think of CGC or CGS. What are your thoughts on them? Do you feel that they're legit? Do you feel that they're a bigger gamble than anything? What do you think about SGC at this point? Should we still send cards in to be graded with SGC since they're so cheaper, and especially if we like somebody like me likes their slabs better, or since they're owned by PSA and PSA could pull the plug and lay them off at any time and just completely shut them down to make more money with their higher their higher fees on the PSA slab, side of the company. Should you even bother with SGC? Because if SGC folds, then you're looking at the same thing that dealers are saying now about Beckett, that that all the company no longer exists, so the slabs aren't worth anything. Well, Beckett exists, but you know what I mean. That's what they're going to say, and I'm just like, and who's to say that in 20 years' time, when my niece and nephew have my collection, or 30 years' time, or whatever, who is to say that PSA by that point might not be overtaken by some other company, and dealers are telling my family, you know what, your uncle or your brother or whatever had a nice collection, but PSA is no longer the top of the line, blah blah blah. So these cards aren't worth anywhere near what you might think, you know, and it's a possibility. So what I'm saying is this: if you're just a collector and you're buying stuff that you want to keep and not sell in your lifetime, like me, then do yourself a favor. Search for the best bargains you can get. Don't spend not 1 cent more than you absolutely have to. Be a bargain hunter. And I mean, my nephew will laugh about that, I bet, because he said to me the other day on the phone, Uncle Mac, I know you're always hunting bargains. You're always talking about being a bargain hunter. Well, I've always been that way. But seriously, it's the best way to make sure that whatever you collect doesn't end up being just a box full of trash one day, in the hobby. And, and I've changed over the years. It's not just about finding a bargain. It's about finding value. So, I'm the guy that's scouring websites looking for the $100 card for $20 that the seller doesn't really realize what he's got. Or I'm the guy, honestly, that's going to the thrift store, that's going to the yard sale looking to buy a collection from somebody that doesn't really care what they've got. They just want to get rid of it. But anyway, thank you all for watching. I really don't know what this. I have stopped buying as much, and if you're watching my channel often, you're going to realize I'm not doing as many videos with graded cards, not SGC, not PSA, not anything. I've stopped buying because of all the stuff going on with the grading card companies. I don't want to pile up any more slabs that my family might not be able to sell one day, because dealers will say, or they'll be able to sell it, but dealers will say, well, at one time that was a high dollar autograph, but it's in the wrong slab. It's in an old slab. It's in it's got an old label. So you need to upgrade. It's not worth as much. No, that's bull. They're trying to force people into having to send their cards back in every 2 or 3 years to get a up-to-date slab or a up-to-date label because of a PSA changing something. PSA has done this with autographs already. PSA started out, if you authenticated an autograph, it was in a blue label. Then they went to a red label. Now they're back to a blue label. No, thank you. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Be back again soon with actual videos about sports cards, probably.